So I'll just start with a quick overview of Ccrm, a little bit about where we came from and where we're heading. Ccrm has a mission, and our mandate really is to build the ecosystem for regenerative medicine in Canada. And that takes the form of a number of ways that we execute on that. One of those is through technology development and manufacturing, which many of the groups here are aware of, because we provide a great deal of service and collaboration to the industry groups as well as academics. Next to that would be investment in companies, and the third being our company creation initiatives. So today I'm going to talk in more detail about that company creation and really how we've designed the strategy of creating those companies in a capital efficient manner. Ccrm, in terms of background, we have about 100 employees. We were established in 2011. We are funded both by the federal and provincial government, and our activities span across Canada. We have staff from Vancouver to Toronto. We're located in downtown Toronto at the Mars facility, which is a huge innovation hub, about 1.5 million square feet of startups. And it's really been, I think, the generation of the Toronto, startup ecosystem really started there. So it's an exciting place to be, and we're right in the middle of it. Directly around us, or within a stone's throw, are about 10 major hospitals and research institutions. So we have all of our collaborators are very close by, but we also work outside of the province and internationally with a lot of groups. So we're very interested in keeping that that funnel open to be working with groups in terms of looking at technologies or working on development. We're broken into six business units. Those units have specific functions within Ccrm. I can talk about those in a moment. And then we have assessed quite a few opportunities, have quite a technology pipeline, and 8 portfolio companies to date that we continue to support, have invested in, and have become a big part of the Ccrm family. So to continue along, this is our business model, which starts on the left with networks. It's a big part of what we do is connecting with academics. That leads to the sourcing of technology, connecting with industry, a lot of sharing of ideas and staying at the forefront of technology development, and then dealing with investors to bring in funding for the initiatives that we undertake. That leads to bringing intellectual property and an in-depth understanding of the market into Ccrm itself. What we have here in these bubbles are the business units, as we call them. At the top here, Attract is a business development type business unit that's directed at reach out to academics and industry. Launch and Scale here are related to company creation and investment. And then on the bottom half here are technical departments responsible for manufacturing and manufacturing technology development. Those elements lead into these value centers for proprietary development, stakeholder engagement, which is related to all the relationships we develop, and then investment. The outcomes from those are exposure to opportunities, we're referring to that as deal flow, capability development, and then sustainability from that. We are a nonprofit. The companies that we create are spun out as for-profits, and so sustainability is a big part of what we do. We're certainly not interested in continually being funded by government over the long term. We need to figure out a way to make the whole model sustainable, and we do that through company creation, the services we provide, and the equity positions that we take in companies that we spin out. So how we build advanced therapy companies. This is a model that I think is pretty well understood. We're highly connected to the academic institutions in our region, and we see about half of the technology from, local and in Canada, and then another half internationally. We do a lot of development internally, so we have a lot of ideas internally through our technical groups, which comprise about 60% of our staff in terms of generating initial ideas as well. And we combine those with academic discovery to create initial concepts for companies. Those then are evaluated by our technical teams. They're supported by our manufacturing functions, supported by a number of other services that we have internally, such as regulatory, quality expertise, as well as external parties as well that are connected with Ccrm. And then those will eventually be spun off. That's our model. This is closely connected to the investment side, which throughout that entire process are part of the sourcing, the technology evaluation in terms of market and competitive landscape, forecasting and modeling, et cetera. And then they're a big part of the spin out and initial financing, seed funding, and Series A of those spin outs. The next slide is really just reaching a little bit further into the way that we've integrated the investment side with company creation from a technical side. Our launch group, which is the company creation group, is a highly technical group, whereas the investment side focuses entirely on, or quite a bit more on, the market, modeling, understanding how these products will be valued and how they'll eventually reach market. And having a combination of that where initially the technical groups take 100% almost of the weight of creating these companies, but over time these transition to more of a portfolio management model through our investment group. I think that's a very unique approach because both of those groups are internal and work together very closely. Next on that would be how we manage these companies from inception. So our strategy is an incubation team concept where internal stakeholders make up a proto company. So the elements of those companies are designed by a sharing of resources within Ccrm. We pride ourselves on not having silos between technical, business, and investment groups at the company, and we combine all those into an individual proto company for each one of these concepts we're developing. Those also included in that, for example, is intellectual property and scouting, the tech development, regulatory, quality that I mentioned. Ccrm management holds a quarterly review of those companies where go and no-go decisions are made. And that's led on a day-to-day basis by a venture manager that's specific to that individual company or a small number of companies so that they can focus fully on pushing those forward through milestones. The next part, which I feel is quite a bit different and very unique about this Ccrm experience with these incubation teams, is the amount of support that we can provide. Due to a great deal of investment in infrastructure and technology development over the last 8 years, when a company comes through Ccrm, that technology can be evaluated from a diligence standpoint in our laboratories. But in addition to that, the initial funding and development of the technology in those companies is worked on in our advanced group, and also CAT-CT, which is our initiative with GE. Those are matured there. The technologies are advanced, and they're evaluated on a consistent basis for success, and then can be moved forward both from the business side and in through our manufacturing. So there's a number of areas that we can support those internally. I think that's very unique. And our organization has shown a lot of success. I'm going to talk about some of the success we've had with companies in the next slides. I think another part of what we do that's interesting is we're investing in these companies both in cash and in kind. So in kind being an exchange for equity with our technical groups, where we would do our technology shared with fee for service. We also have the opportunity to do work at no cost to the company, so there's no cash out of their pocket, or in the case of an incubation company, no cash out of that organization because it's a full investment by Ccrm to push it forward. This is a quick view of a company creation funnel. This is showing right now that we have 3 incubation companies in the works, and then Knotch Therapeutics, which is our most recent graduate. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about Knotch and the experience that Knotch had through our system. There's a number of milestone points or phases in our development process, going from initial hypothesis, feasibility testing in our laboratories, the product development, and then the spin-out or graduation of that new venture. Everything starts in that early stage, which we have a technology sourcing team that scours the planet, works with a lot of PIs, and also our relationships in providing support to grant organizations like Medicine by Design and the Ontario Institute for Regenerative Medicine. These groups are funded by the Ontario and federal government to fund initiatives in technology development or scientific development that are specific to disease teams, and we're contracted to provide the support for commercialization to those groups. So our most recent graduate, Knotch Therapeutics, this is a group that is the missing piece to manufacturing T cells from PSCs. Essentially, an expansion technology that enables the manufacturing of gene-edited T cells from pluripotent stem cells. So how was this one, what was the experience of Knotch through CCRM? You can see on this, there's quite a few areas where we provided support. In fact, this company started right from the beginning where it was identified through an academic researcher, Peter Zanstra at U of T, and brought right from the initial provisional and PCT filings through to Series A funding. Well, I should say seed funding, and they're doing their own Series A. So in those early days, the technology was licensed. We actually hired the student inventor from the laboratory that was working on this technology, and that was back in 2017. Over the course of the next 2 years, we funded the proof of concept, brought in a number of experts and entrepreneurs, and actually brought that through an acceleration program called CDL, or Creative Destruction Labs at University of Toronto. That's a new program in Canada where there's now 5 locations, and one's recently opened up in the UK. It's similar to other acceleration programs, and this one in particular, they focus on mentorship by very successful entrepreneurs who will take those companies and provide a lot of feedback as they pass through a measured system of milestones. And those that graduate from the end have been quite successful and have an opportunity for funding. In this particular case, Knotch was the first graduate, I believe, in their healthcare stream, so that was quite a feather in our cap. Then in 2019, we co-founded Knotch Therapeutics. Ccrm licensed the technology for Knotch. We recruited an EIR with a successful track record of success to run it. We seed funded that organization along with other groups in Toronto, venture capital, et cetera, and then transitioned key personnel at Ccrm. So we actually provided some of our staff to these startups as well. So they've been moving along with that company and very familiar with its technology all through the cycle, and they moved from Ccrm, and that's, I think, part of our mandate in building the ecosystem in Toronto. Next was infrastructure support. So this is the program that we're moving on to now. Our organization will actually house part of Knotch's activities going forward. They will work in our laboratories, in particular confidential space. We provide that office space, IT, finance support, in addition to access to our manufacturing equipment. And then into the future, they'll be moving into more traditional service relationship with Ccrm for manufacturing services. So just to close out that summary, we've evaluated around 200 technologies over the past 2 to 3 years under this initiative. About 145 companies have been triaged in that. That doesn't include all the technologies we've evaluated as well and triaged. And then 8 portfolio companies are currently in our portfolio company group. Around $320 million has been raised by those portfolio companies, which is 100x leverage over initial investments that Ccrm has made. Ccrm has had a recent exit with AveroBio where a 12x return was made, showing the success and potential for that sustainability model. And then we have 3 current incubations and unlimited possibilities going forward. Thank you very much.